Well, is the war over? Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thanks so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. If you got a question for me, I want to invite you to go to the website. Other reasons as well, but we'll start with the first one. There is a link at the top of the page. You can go to, click through, and send me your questions. I love to get them, and I will personally answer them back myself. So that's all at the website. The second thing is you want to sign up for the email newsletter list. Every time that we post things on the site, you can be informed. We're going to have a couple of options for this actually as we roll it out. But today, you can go and check out what we post, and trying to stay on top of this so that I can give you as my listeners good information and kind of try to stay ahead of what's happening with our retirement money. And that's something from a stewardship standpoint that's extremely important, is that we do stay ahead of it. And it's just a very crazy thing. You know, I posted an article about the three things that really do concern me about what's happening in the Middle East. And I had somebody send me an email, and the question was about, what about Venezuela? And I thought to myself, yeah, what about Venezuela? That was a big deal, but that was yesterday's news. Or Cuba, or wherever. It seems like we're either threatening to attack somebody or all of the above. It's just a crazy thing. The last really communication that President Trump had about what's going on, he said we're gonna get leave this to be your problem, talking about all the other Middle Eastern countries, and it's your problem to take care of. They're gonna have to open up the strait. You have to get them to do it. I'm done, and don't look to the U.S. to come to your aid if you need it. But at the same time, he's putting over 50,000 troops in there. And I just got to thinking, that would be interesting reverse psychology, is just to all of a sudden pull out and say, we're not going to worry ourselves with this. But yet that doesn't make the reason for going there, it doesn't take the motivation, or it shouldn't take the motivation to take care of the potential of nuclear war and a nuclear bomb. So we'll see what's going on, but I just can't imagine us pulling out. I'm sure that there's going to be some type of a ground strategy there. I hope not. I really do hope not, because to put our men and women into harm's way, it's just not something that is preferable. But if it is all there and they can get it out, they can put for once they can take care over the Strait of Hormuz, then that's a good thing, I guess. But not an easy situation, and I just we'll see what if you're going to, if the president's going to remove the troops and it's going to be over in 2 or 3 weeks, then I just don't think it works that easily. We talked a lot about that in the piece that I wrote yesterday, is that there's been some serious damage done here, and it's not like Iran's going to just stop hating us as a country. And it's a very, very different situation. I mean, they're still holding us hostage. And, if let's say that you went through with, we're moving out and we're not going to do anything about the Straits of Hormuz. You handle it. That's about 100+ mile waterway that 20%, if you didn't know, 20% of the global oil production moves through on a daily basis. You shut it down, which is what's happened. You get inflation, which is what is happening. You get gas prices going up. You get all these issues that we're starting to deal with. And, that makes no sense if you're not going to take that over or try to take that over. And I don't know. I personally believe that in all the studying that I've done and research into this is that this is going to last a whole lot longer, and that may be a Captain Obvious answer, but that this is going to take a lot longer than anyone thinks. There's because the bottom line is until at this point nothing has changed over the past 2 or 3 days. We still have to get a hold and take control of that waterway, and to make sure that we're effectively allowing oil to get from point A to point B. I mean, that has not changed. In fact, if we move all of our men and women out of their uniform in the military forces, when we vacate the area, we stop shooting at them, we stop dropping bombs, then if they want to cause a world problem, then they just shut down that waterway again. It's a big waterway, by the way. Just calling it a waterway didn't really give it justice. But to shut down the strait, this is going to be something that's a whole lot more difficult and technical and whatever the big words you can think of to go with that than what they're doing. And they're doing a lot. So, pray for our country, pray for the president, pray for the leaders of Washington, and let's hope some good decisions are made. So, what do you do when you will for those? Well, let me divide it into two camps. There will be those of you who decide to look at your March statements and probably take the news as good as you're going to take. I mean, they're not horrible, but they're not really good. March was a brutal month for stocks. And you'll take it, you'll look at it, and you'll get through it. The other person will do the approach of they'll go to the mailbox or they'll go to their computer, they'll download it, and they'll file it right away. Now, for the person who's on computer, obviously they'll file it in the inbox, then they'll rationalize. Well, I'll take a look at it later when I have a little bit more time. And that's a strategy, not a very good one, but it is strategy. And then finally, you've got the person who doesn't have it on the computer, still receives the statements mailed to them. Not judging, just that's what some people still do. And then they take the statement and they chunk it in the drawer and close the drawer to the desk. That once again is a strategy, not a very good one. So what I would suggest for you is, best case scenario, this will play itself out quickly, probably not as quick as President Trump seems to want to do it, but it'll be a little bit quicker than normal and get things cranking back to normal again. That's one aspect. And if I could stress anything at all, it's that you need to develop a strategy for whatever might be happening. And there's great strategies you can use. I saw an article not too long ago, a couple of days ago actually, that it was on CNBC, and they were just talking about how, there's no strategies, there's no investments, there's no place to hide. And I used to, when watching CNBC during the financial crisis, you would see the exact same thing. You would see articles that would talk about there's just no place to hide. There's just not anything that you can invest in. There are so many different things you can do, and it's just that it takes the time, and I'll even say the courage, because you'll be in a situation where you need to make changes, perhaps. And it's one of those things where you don't want to make a bad move. You don't want to move too early. You don't want to move too late. And it is a tough decision, and I've always respected that as a tough decision. The point, though, is that you've got to know that there are strategies and investments out there that can weather the storm. And I'm not talking about annuities and things. I'm talking about real investments that can really give you some protection and potentially some growth. So if you want to know anything about that, you can always go to prudentmoney.com and send in an email, and we'll get you squared away. That's all at prudentmoney.com. Well, one of the things I like to make sure and do is keep you posted on what's happening in the market, and in the automobile market, the consumer markets in particular, and help you make decisions that I know people are making. And some interesting statistics came out, and I don't really. I mean, if this gets a lot worse, this could really have an effect on the economy. It says nearly 1 in 3 car buyers are underwater on trade-ins. Analyst calls dollar amount troubling. There's a couple of, well, first let me explain what they mean by underwater. What they're saying is that 1 out of every 3 car buyers, people who are in the market to buy a new automobile, trade their current car, truck, whatever, on that new automobile, it owes more than it's worth. And of course, that could be a dramatic difference. It could be a small difference. But the bottom line is, if they wanted to get out underneath that car, they would have to carry and refinance some negative equity, which is the amount of money that they are over. So if you've got a car that's worth $1,000 and you got they're going to give you a trade-in of $1,100, then that $100 is negative equity. That's the amount that you owe that's worth more than the car itself. And these kinds of statistics we want to really keep an eye on, because they tell you about what's going on in the various consumer markets. And the realization is that 2/3 of economic growth come from the consumer market. Said another way, 2/3 of economic growth depend upon consumers spending money. Well, we'll jump into that and talk a little bit more about that on the other side of the break. This is Bob Brooks. You are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Stick around. We'll be right back. Hello, this is Bob Brooks. Proverbs 22:3 and Proverbs 27:12 are the exact same verse word for word. I call them the stewardship verses of risk. A prudent person foresees danger and takes precautions. The simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. On the Prudent Money Radio Show, we teach about risk, how to identify it, how to figure it out, and what to do about it. We believe that to be a prudent steward, you have to be a good risk manager. Listen to the Prudent Money Radio Show on Bible School Radio 91.3. Prudent Money, home of the modern-day steward movement.
Dynamic, practical, life-changing.
There's no point in going to church and not letting the Christ who gave birth to the church on the day of Pentecost change your life.
Join us each day as Pastor Paul Shepherd applies the timeless truth of Scripture to everyday life. It's Destined for Victory on this great station.
Weekday afternoons at 3:30 here on Bible School Radio, KDKR.
This is Rob Randall, your host and teacher of the Invisible War radio program. The Invisible War is the study of God's Word on how to walk in Christ's victory in the spiritual battles we face against the powers of darkness. Join me every Sunday morning at 9 right here on KDKR and KYJC in Commerce, your station for life.
Welcome back. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thanks so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Listen, if you got a question for me, I invite you to go, let me say it that way, invite you to go to the website at prudentmoney.com and send in a question. Just go up to the top of the front page. There is a link that says Ask Bob. Just click through there, and we'll get you taken care of. That's off the website, www.prudentmoney.com. We were talking about before the break, nearly 1 in 3 car buyers are underwater on trade-ins, meaning they owe more than the car's worth. So, what do you do in a situation like this? Well, let's look at let's make sure we hit all the high notes. The average amount owed on trade-ins with negative equity reached $7,214 in the fourth quarter of 2025, an all-time high. That is a brutal amount of money. think about that for a second. The average. So you've got consumers that are in worse shape, way worse shape, but the average is $7,214. Of course, I'd like to think that's an all-time high, and it's not going to get any worse. But that is a lot of negative equity in a car. Meaning, you owe, if you were average, you would owe $7,214 more than the car's worth. The average price of a new car, get this, is $49,353, which is 30.3% higher than in February 2020, when that amount was $37,876, and according to Kelley Blue Book data. So, what do you do in this situation? Well, a lot of people, they look at it as, first of all, the way cars are sold, the way deals are put together. It's all about the payment, especially on lease cars that lease agreements, or you never build up any equity. But what a lot of car dealers are doing, and unfortunately, this ends up. I'd like to see what if you look at all those people who have negative equity, what kind of interest rates that they're paying, because that's where the real problem comes to. So if you go into a car dealership, you really want this red convertible, and you come to an agreement on the price. You talk about the loan that has to be paid off, and they look at you and go, well, you're going to have to pay off, X amount of dollars, or we're going to have to roll it into and make the negative equity even more by doing so in the new car. And so you come out with, but we can bring that price down by doing an 84-month loan. 84-month loan. So I can already tell without looking at the numbers, is that people are getting kind of. In fact, I'm surprised that they are even writing these kinds of loans, because at the end of the day, I mean, that's pretty risky credit that they're taking on. But let's say you're $7,200 in the hole, and they pay off your car. Well, they roll that over to the new car, and that that loan is 15-16%. Well, that's pretty steep. Granted, they're going to get your payments down because they're going to put you on an 84-month, which I would say the possibilities are pretty good that you are going to refinance that again and roll more negative equity. Just a dangerous cycle until you break it. And there's not very many good options to tell you what to do in that situation. I mean, you could always get intentional about paying that negative equity down, and paying it down till you get, you would take the car, trade it in, and you would get something back of value for the car. That would be good. And then buy the next car right with a lower interest rate. Obviously, that's one of them. The second one is to get the best negative equity deal you can get, and just commit to, it's going to take me 84 months to pay this thing off. I mean, and I know that's not good advice. I'm not giving it as advice. I'm giving this as options of things that you may have to do to get out of the situation you're in. Not good choices, but debt never is. And that's why it's my hope that anyone who has set goals to get out of debt, stick to it and really get a game plan together to get it done, and get it done once and for all. And it's so very doable. I've talked to many people throughout the many years that I've done this, and it is doable. It's just, some of it's going to be unpleasant. You're not going to like the options that you've got. But putting it off and increasing negative equity is not what you want to do, and definitely not the best route. So what do we watch here? We watch these statistics, and we hope that they kind of level off. You expect some of this, but I got to tell you, $7,200 of negative equity being the average, that is very disturbing, Very disturbing. Hey, this is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. If you've got a question for me, go to the website, www.prudentmoney.com. Send it in, and I will get you taken care of. That's all at the website. Also, there's a newsletter list you can sign up for, and that's the way we keep you posted on any time we post brand new things to the web, like the article I posted yesterday. And when I pick out topics to talk about or pick up other writers their posts and put their posts on my website, giving them credit, of course. These are things I think you need to watch. These are points that I think you need to get, and that's what this is all about. So this is all at the website, www.prudentmoney.com. I saw an interesting article yesterday as I was skimming through the news outlets, looking for interesting things to bring back to you and important things to bring back to you. I found out, I didn't know this, that the average cost of gas, that the minute that it goes over $4 a gallon, is just not it isn't just an economic number. It's a behavioral and emotional tipping point that can ripple through spending, sentiment, and even policy. Never knew this. This is, of course, it depends on where you are in the around the country. There are places in the U.S. that are like California that are $5, $5.50 and above, $6 and above. Unbelievable, right? There is Texas, which the average cost of gasoline is about $3, probably up a little bit since I read that. But this $4 benchmark is something that supposedly the gas station owners just do whatever they can to bring the price down. If it means taking a little bit of a loss to keep it at $3.99, then they'll do it. That is how powerful it is. It actually, when gas prices are high and visible, people feel inflation more intensely. I get that. I mean, if you're people look more too. I think that's the thing. I never really pay attention to gas prices until we start getting something like this, and then I start watching it and keeping an eye on it. And of course, that's just the connection with pain when you start thinking about how much this is digging into your budget. Even if other prices aren't rising as fast, gas starts to shape sentiment. Pretty strong words. Traders and analysts watch $4 as a line in the sand. And I can't say that I've ever watched CNBC or any of these other these programs that run the financial media and say that I've seen that or discussion of that. Maybe there has, just haven't come across it. But nationally, it still acts as a trigger point for concern. And, national average for a gallon of gas, I think, is $3.99. And it's just a interesting situation that we find ourselves in. I was talking to Chuck Bentley. I think I might have mentioned this, but if I did, pardon me. I was talking to Chuck Bentley the other day, and he is the CEO of Crown Financial Ministries. And we were talking about everything that was going on. Make sure, and I'll remind you of this, but make sure you listen to our next program together, which will be in mid-April or so. And we'll be talking about his book, The 7 Gray Swans. And this is basically 7 areas that he has made predictions about 4 or 5 years ago that we're starting to see come to fruition. And it's some of it, or a lot of it, is a little concerning. It's not to be gloom and doom. You know that. It's about keeping you up the curve on what you need to know. That way you can make better choices and get through these situations as they come and they go and they build up and they wind down. And next thing you know, you got $5 of gas. Hopefully that won't happen. But make sure that you do stay in touch with Prudent Money, because we are it's my goal to keep you posted on what you need to know. If you go to the website, you'll find a lot of resources there, so I hope that you'll do that. And tomorrow, Mark Pfeiffer will be on the program with me talking real estate and what's going on in those markets. It seems like that is the biggest market roller coaster. Probably not as bad as the stock market, but it is definitely got to be challenging. And then Monday, Friday is Good Friday. We'll be playing one of the classics from Tony Joe, if there is such a thing. Tony Joe and I is talking about automobiles, and of course Tony Joe talking about automobile repair. That'll be Friday. Then Monday, we're going to talk more about this private credit and why this is something that we've got to be keeping an eye on, because this could be the next financial crisis. And it could be heading for your 401k plan. No, not just a crisis, the potential to invest into it, and why that's not something that you may want to think twice about. But all that next week. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. If you got a question for me, please go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time. Keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.